Rishi Sunak has appeared to rule out handing back £10 million in donations from the Tory party's biggest donor, currently embroiled in a racism row. The Prime Minister faced tough questions in the Commons earlier this afternoon on whether he would or would not return the money and how he feels to be supported by businessman Frank Hester, who allegedly said Hackney MP Diane Abbott made him, and I quote, and I apologise, want to hate all black women.
The man bankrolling the Prime Minister also said that the member for Hackney North should be shot. How low would he have to sink? What racist, woman-hating threat of violence would he have to make before the Prime Minister plucked up the courage to hand back the £10 million that he's taken from him?
Rishi Sunak said Mr Hester's remorse should be accepted and accused the Labour leader of double standards.
Mr Speaker, as I said, the gentleman apologised genuinely for his comments and that remorse should be accepted. But he talks about language. He might want to reflect on the double standards of his deputy leader, calling her opponents scum, Mr Speaker. His shadow foreign secretary, the shadow foreign secretary comparing Conservatives to Nazis, Mr Speaker. And the man that he wanted to make Chancellor, talking about lynching a female minister. His silence on that speaks volumes.
Diane Abbott was in the chamber today, as you saw there, and there's been some criticism of Commons Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who was criticised because she wasn't called upon to ask a question or indeed to speak about her own experience. Joining me in the studio now are TalkTV's chief political commentator, Peter Cardwell. Hello, Peter. And Joe Twyman, director of the public opinion consultancy Deltable. Good to see you, Joe. Hi. And down the line, we're joined by Labour councillor and anti-racism activist Maurice McLeod. Hi, Maurice. Good to have you on. Good to have you all here. I wondered whether yesterday we might finish that story. It might be done and dusted. My guests, all of them, yesterday on the show were absolutely unequivocally convinced and completely assured in saying that the money must be returned, as if there was no discussion, no question about it. You know, how could anybody keep the money under these circumstances? It must be returned. However, here we are, and the story continues, Peter. And one of the questions I think people are asking is, are the Tories lavishly imbued with money to the point where they could easily return £10 million, or do they very badly need that £10 million to help them in their election efforts?
Well, they need the money. I mean, election campaigns cost a lot of money, but not, I mean, 10 million is a significant portion of what that might be. The money also may not exist. They may not have it in their coffers. I actually take a slightly different view on this. I think it's not so much the money being returned to Frank Hester. I think the money probably, for politically expedient reasons, probably needs to be donated to a charity like Women's Aid or an anti-racism campaign for the Conservatives to actually say, look, we realise we don't want this person's money, but we're not giving it back to him. We're giving it to another good cause, especially one which is related to the comments Mr Hester is alleged to have made. So this is a very, very serious matter for the Conservative Party. Rishi Sunak was trying to take the moral high ground today at Prime Minister's questions by talking about anti-Semitism, by talking about the fact, we didn't see it in that clip, but there's another clip where he talked about the fact that Keir Starmer as a lawyer had represented Hizb ut-Tahrir, for example, and had chosen to do so. But actually, this is just going to go on. The Guardian is going to have more revelations, and the Conservative Party is going to have to make a decision on this. It hasn't so far. And we had this absurd spectacle yesterday of them sending out ministers saying that this either wasn't racist or shouldn't be seen to be racist. It's, of course, it's racist. And then we had Kemi Badenoch, who is, of course, a black woman herself, saying that she wholeheartedly disagrees with a lot of things that Diane Abbott says, but at the same time, correctly, Diane Abbott should not be criticised for being black or being a woman. Criticise her on her political views by all means and have that debate. And
also, I mean, the very definition of what racism is to look at somebody of a race, colour, creed or ethnicity, and because they behave in a certain way or you think of them in a certain way, to apportion that characteristic to every single other person from the same colour, creed or ethnicity. That is what racism is.
Yes,
that is it.
That's the
kind of baseline of it, isn't it? You see somebody behaving in a way and you say everybody from your faith, colour or creed is exactly like you because you're of that colour or creed. That's what it is.
And unfortunately, Vanessa, what we see with this incident, as we have seen with a number of other incidents under the Sunak administration, is that there is something very, very clear and very obvious that needs to be either called out and done and something done about it. But they hesitate, they prevaricate, they take their time, and then they eventually have to do what everybody knows what should have been done in the first place. And I think this money will be either returned to Frank Hester or given to charities. I think that's inevitable. It has to happen politically, and it's not going to stop. And the media is not going to stop, and Labour is not going to stop until that's done.